All right, we are live. Welcome, everybody, to the Gunner Tech Livestream, a weekly tech talk for non-techies and techies alike. I'm your host, Derry Merkins. With me is founder and CEO of Gunner Technology, Cody Swan. What's up, Cody?
Hey, how's it going? Dealing with some camera problems at first, and well, computer problems at first, and then I had camera problems because it was like Hangouts can't access your camera.
Good.
I was like, why can't it? And apparently, for some reason, there's two cameras by the same name in my settings. I still don't know why, but anyway, I apologize for the tardiness.
That's all right. Quick shout out to our sponsor, Country Shore Outfitters at countryshoreoutfitters.com. Check them out on our Facebook page. And actually, I need to look up who the winner is of our weekly giveaway. So bear with me real quick.
I believe his name was Winnie the Winterson.
Winnie the Pooh Winterson?
That's right.
Hold on one sec. Bear with us here, folks. Let's see. Jim W. from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Go Eagles. Jim, you got a Country Shore shirt and hat coming your way, so congratulations on the Super Bowl and congratulations on winning the weekly contest. You can sign up for the weekly giveaway on our Facebook page, and I think on Country Shore's Facebook page. Is that right?
Yeah, you can. Yep, on Country Shore's Facebook page. That is. Wait, no, our Facebook page. I don't think there's anything on Country Shore's Facebook page.
Okay, well, sign up on the Gunner Technology Facebook page for that weekly giveaway. And actually, we have a new segment this week that we're going to introduce right before we start our next 10-part series. So it's going to be a question of the week segment. So, Cody, do you want to talk about what the question of the week was last week and what the question of the week is for the week coming up?
Yeah, so last week, per our kind of conversation, we were talking about actually, it was like the week before, we were talking about outsourcing. So the question of the week was, have you ever outsourced technology? And again, I was purposely vague because I didn't want to get too specific and say, have you ever outsourced software? Because not everyone's dealt with software before. So the answers were, and we got over 2,000 responses between our Facebook page, our Twitter page, and we put up another poll, I think, in the newsletter. We got over 2,000 responses, and about 80% had said they have outsourced technology. So it was a big yes. And so then when I could actually follow up, when I had names, I asked kind of followed up people individually. What did you outsource? And most of it was not software.
Hold on a second. There's no sound coming in from your side. You're gonna have to. Sorry, bear with this live stream. We'll restart OBS. By the way, you can through your OBS. Talk now.
Talk now. Speaking now.
Again?
Talk now.
Okay, here we go. I don't know if I have to restart Facebook. Let's see if it'll just come back.
Come back, Facebook.
Come back to us now, Facebook. If you turn to the tide. All right, we're at the point where I stop the stream, so let's see if it keeps going. It looks like we might be all right. So just we're at least live on YouTube, so that's good enough. And Facebook will get you fixed while Cody's talking on YouTube. So start over, Cody. What's the question of the week for this week, and what's the question of the week coming up for this next week?
So the question of the week last week was, have you ever outsourced technology? And the responses, we had about 2,000 responses. We put the poll up on our Facebook page, our Twitter page, and through a Google poll in our newsletter. We got about just over 2,000 responses. And again, it was overwhelmingly 80% said yes, they had. And so then through the wonders of social media, I started a discussion to see what people had outsourced. And it was all kind of goods, not really services. There were some people services. The weird thing was most people had a negative experience, and everyone who used overseas outsourcing for a service had a negative experience. Literally everyone who had used overseas outsourcing for services had a negative experience.
100% across the board. There wasn't
100%. It was like 60% of people who used it for goods had a negative experience, which is usually like it took way longer than what they said it was going to take. The quality was poor. It didn't even get what they had asked for. Those were kind of the complaints with goods, but services were just like awful, like unresponsive, didn't get what we asked for. Had to call, like, there was no communication. So it was like
communication issues have always been the biggest headache for us when we're dealing with people who work has been outsourced to.
Yeah, exactly. So
getting in touch.
That was the biggest. It was horrible for that.
And what do we have coming up for next week? What's the question of the week next week?
So the question of the week this week, which, by the way, I found out doing the question of the week this week, is that Facebook will only allow you to have 2 responses in a poll, which seems utterly useless.
Only a Sith deals in absolutes.
So our poll is only in the newsletter and on our Twitter page this week. I did post a link to it on Facebook, so you can vote, but you have to vote on Twitter or Google. And the question is, how much time do you spend keeping up with tech news each week? And the responses are less than an hour, 1 to 3 hours, 3 to 5 hours, 4 to 5 hours. That kind of goes in line with our show from last week about keeping up with tech news.
Cool, yeah. So definitely check that out on Twitter and our Google page. Is that what you said?
It's in our newsletter. It's like a direct link to like a Google poll kind of thing. I'm not even sure how to like say. Like no one uses Google Plus, so
yeah, just check the newsletter out. Nobody uses Google Plus. It's so sad because it's so true.
It's Google minus.
Sick burn. So our topic this week is probably the hardest topic of this entire 10-part series on the technology industry, because I think if we knew the explicit answers to these questions, we could retire within the next 2 years and just ride off into the sunset. But the question for today is, where is the technology industry going to be in the next 5, 10, 25, or 50 years? I don't know how we put 50 years in. If somebody can predict half a century away, my goodness gracious, you are like the smartest man on the planet. But let's talk about it and see what we can come up with. What sort of harebrained ideas we can raise.
So 50 years, that's the time frame we're looking at, 50 years.
Well, that's the outside. We can start with the 5 or 10. That's maybe a little easier to do. 50 years, God only knows. We might be like interstellar technology in 50 years.
That's right. That's right. It's like
populating planets.
It's like the that scene from Time Cop with Jean-Claude Van Damme, where the guy's just making bank by illegally going back in time and just picking the right stocks.
Or like Back to the Future 2, when
going forward,
when Biff gets the sports book.
That's right. Yeah, and he goes forward in time to see what stocks are going to be big, and then he goes back in time and buys them. And it's the same thing, man. If we could do that, we would never have to touch a keyboard ever again. If we could figure that out,
we could just live stream constantly.
That's right. We could just live stream and then not tell anyone what we knew, because if we told everyone what we knew, we might upset the timeline.
That's right. Yeah, the space-time continuum.
So, but yeah, I mean, we kind of talk about it. I mean, in the next, I think 5 years, I think that artificial intelligence, which I don't think, what's weird though, and I'll kind of list this out. And I think we need to kind of explain what we mean by artificial intelligence, at least in the next 5 years, because it's a lot different than.
That's the perfect frame for Twitter to freeze on. You froze up there. You wanted to talk about artificial intelligence, and you said it's a lot more than. Continue on from there.
It's a lot different. It's a lot different than what most people see in Hollywood, at least in my mind, in the near term, where people see Westworld and that's their idea of artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence in the near term is much different than that. And that's kind of what I see as the artificial intelligence that'll be big in the next 5 years.
You mean more so that it's going to be not necessarily humanoid or android artificial intelligence? It'd be more artificial intelligence like the spoilers, like the villain in iRobot, where it's just a cube that controls everything?
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, artificial intelligence in that, because as you know, machine learning and artificial intelligence kind of go hand in hand. And so artificial intelligence is like automated machine learning kind of thing. And I think we'll see that. I think we'll see systems making decisions on behalf of humans, like driverless cars. It's artificial intelligence, but there's no humanoids. So yeah, you're right. I don't see humanoids taking off in the next 5 years, but the artificial intelligence I really see being the big thing in the next 5 years. And kind of what goes hand in hand with that is the machine learning that we always talk about, because that's the backbone of artificial intelligence. And kind of in the same thing, in the same realm of artificial intelligence, virtual reality, augmented reality, I see, really coming big in the next 5 years or so. And I don't know if we need to explain that more, but that's
I actually would. Yeah. So just I guess a broad overview of VR and how it would change the world in the next 5 years. I mean, I know most people have experience with VR, whether it's through, playing a VR game or messing around with what the name of Google's cheap VR solution is, or even just using an app on their phone.
Right.
But yeah, just talk about the direction that VR seems to be going, or where it might go in the next half a decade.
And so I'll step out from the video game realm, because that's the easy realm to go. Video games, obviously, I think are going to be huge into VR, not the next 5 years, but maybe the next 2 years. But I see it more, again, you could combine VR with artificial intelligence and machine learning, and you can actually do a lot of training simulations. Surgeons can operate on the equivalent of real things that, based on artificial intelligence, can actually simulate, accidentally nicking the trachea when you're in surgery, and what you have to do then. I mean, it could be a completely autonomous training simulation where you're actually using the tools, or seem to be using the tools, and you're actually operating on something that looks real because you're in virtual reality, and that thing that looks real even acts real because it's powered by artificial intelligence. And I mean, think about the endless situations for that. You can have lawyers can train that way, litigators can train that way. They can have real world court simulations where they're actually trying a case with a judge, jury, everything. You have combat simulation where troops are training legitimately in combat scenarios that haven't even been thought of yet. Surgeons, pilots. I mean, the list goes on and on. Once you combine that virtual reality with real artificial intelligence, the possibilities for training just become kind of endless.
When you have an artificial intelligence of sufficient level to generate simulations like you're talking about, wouldn't the artificial intelligence be powerful enough at that point to basically replace any need for human beings to do what they're training to do?
See, it's possible, and that's where I diverge on the humanoid thing, because you would have to have the humanoid aspect in there to carry out the responsibilities of a human, like the litigation training, the courtroom training. If there was an actual humanoid who could stand up in a court of law and do that, then yes, there wouldn't be a need for a human to try a case.
Isn't that something? Isn't that something of a relic of the past, though? The fact that you actually need a human being to be standing in a courtroom. I mean, even then, I think a lot of most litigation happens behind closed doors via non-human to human interaction.
Yeah, no, 100%, and that's why I was specifically witness testimony simulations, objection overrule type situation. Those very specific things that happen in the courtroom that a lawyer kind of has to adjust to on the fly. And,
see, that's the perfect stuff for any sort of AI system to do, though. Adjusting on the fly. That's why we have self-driving cars, is the ability for AI to adjust on the fly.
Right, it's 100% correct. A machine could do that much better, because a humanoid sitting on the defense table as the prosecution was speaking could run through every case law that has ever come up and object based on case law that no one has ever heard of before.
Yeah. It's actually really interesting. You might have like Donald J. AI Esquire, just be like a little briefcase machine, and then just have like a, just for historical purposes, have like a human representative there to actually raise the objections or bring about the case law. But it seems like humans would just become appendages to the AI at that point.
Yeah, and I always see, and that's kind of why I say that, again, every situation that I mentioned, the surgeon, military training, courtroom scenarios, a robot could do that, a machine, a system could do that. But I think because of tradition and just like long-standing practices, that a human will have to do those things in the short term. We're talking about the next 5 years.
Yeah.
And so I think in the next 5 years, it's going to be like kind of machines teaching us how to do those things better. And then kind of once we get over the fact that, once we get kind of accept the fact that humanoids are going to be here and we get used to that fact, then I see kind of like the teacher becoming or the master becoming the
the even more master.
Yeah, the master becoming even more, but the master becoming the doer kind of thing, the teacher becoming the doer. But until that point, I think the first step is that machines are going to teach us to do our jobs a lot better, and then kind of be like, okay, we can just
we'll take it from here, guys.
Yeah,
we can do it. We can already do it better, so we'll just do it. So 10 years, we'll have robot courts. That's a good that's a good prediction for the tech industry. I think there's probably more applications for VR too. I know there's a lot of interesting stuff being done in the field, especially with geolocation. Like I know there was a Black Mirror episode about tracking technology for children. I could see the ability to be able to track people as they come and go throughout their day becoming more and more important. I know actually just surveillance in general seems to be an arena that's really taken off. I mean, I think government sort of led the way on that in terms of having cameras everywhere, but I think the consumer is actually starting to catch up. So there's the Ring now, which I think was actually on one of those Shark Tank shows, and nobody bought it. And I think now it's valued at a couple $2 billion, but I think most companies are valued at a couple $2 billion. But Ring is basically a device. It's like a doorbell device that has a built-in camera, so you can see who's actually at your door while you're away from home. I think that kind of stuff is going to become more and more prevalent over the next 5 to 10 years.
I have Ring. Yeah, I installed it recently. It's fantastic, and not only is it a doorbell, because it's a motion detector. So if anything goes by in the doorbell's purview, you can get an alert saying there's activity at your door.
There's different zones too, right?
Right. There's different zones. You can push it out 50 yards in all the way to like 3 yards, and then when someone rings the doorbell, you get an alert on your phone, someone's at your door. If you pay their subscription service, you actually get to keep the video and go back and review it if you want. They have social interaction, so you can like, if I see something on my Ring, I have the option to share it to the Ring community. And so if I do that, it'll say, like, for example, if my neighbor has a break-in and they catch it on Ring, they can share it, and it'll go to me and everyone else in the area that has Ring, and they'll say, oh, there's a break-in that Ring caught on camera, be on the lookout. And Ring goes way beyond that. They have intercom systems now, and they have, the next thing I'm putting in is they have floodlight cameras that go around the house. So the camera, the lights come on if it senses motion, and you get an alert, and you can turn on the camera. And if there's someone out there, you can hit a button, and it sounds like a huge siren alarm that just goes off. I mean, it's crazy.
So I think hypersecurity might be an arena that's going to drastically change in at least the short term. And I mean, like 50 years down the line, it could be that everyone is tracked all the time for whatever actions that they're doing in any given moment, and it's basically it's almost like 24/7 surveillance. Which I think the theory there is basically when people are watching you, you behave better than when people aren't.
Yeah, well, and it's funny that you brought up the security thing, because now, like, number one, Amazon just bought Ring.
Yeah, so, exactly. Yeah, that's right. And I think, wasn't it for $1 or $2 billion?
Man, it might have been more than that. But
I'm gonna look
so Alexa actually integrates with Ring now in a lot of things. So you can just say, like, Alexa, check my front door, kind of thing. And so, but the other
between $1.2 and $1.8 billion. So that's pretty good. And they were on Shark Tank, looking for a couple $100,000, and nobody bought into it.
It's crazy, right? Because like, here's a company that I think has real value, and they sell for less than $2 billion, and then you have a company like Snapchat that has like a $40 billion valuation. Like,
yeah,
I just don't understand this world sometimes. I just don't. But anyway, I was doing some research on Alexa and security, and they have things like, oh gosh, it was totally like Home Alone. Like, you can set Alexa in the security features to do a dog barking noise every random at random intervals where you're away. So like, if someone's like coming by your house, they hear like a dog barking inside, and they're like, oh, I don't want to go in there. You know, it's crazy the things that the security industry is coming up with.
Well, what I want to know is, because Macaulay Culkin figured this out ages ago, but how do you hook up an inflatable man in a shower to your security system and have him point at the window and call someone a pervert as they're trying to get into your house?
And it dances to the Reno cat as it can really do the cougar.
Yeah, that's the technology I want. Actually, let me throw a question out to our audience. Anyone out there who is a parent who is currently watching, how would you feel about, and this is something that I've actually already done with my dog, but how would you feel about like putting a chip in your child to be able to track them and know their whereabouts at any given time? Do you think that's too much of an invasion of privacy, or is that something that you would do just for the security aspect of it? Because that's actually the Black Mirror episode that I referenced. That's sort of the crux of it is the mother installs a device in the child's eyes so that she can see what the daughter is seeing and also control what the daughter sees. So if something too horrible is in her vision, like a really scary dog, she can turn the vision off or blur it out. So at what point does it creep over from security to like weird authoritarian oversight? I think that's a question we're going to bump into within the next 5 or 10 years, because a lot of the surveillance stuff, we're surveilling people who haven't agreed to be surveilled, except for the fact that they're walking around.
Yeah, it's really weird. And actually, from my journalism background, I actually have a really good understanding of privacy laws and kind of what is legal and what isn't legal from a privacy standpoint. And like, technology just kind of blurs all of those lines. One thing I was reading this week is that the FBI was paying Geek Squad to like rat people out. They were going through their computers and they found child porn on. So if you brought your computer into Geek Squad to have them fix it and they found child porn, like the FBI was paying them to report like, hey, this guy's got child porn on his computer. Like,
I mean, gut reaction is that's a good thing.
Right, exactly.
Logical, like thinking through it a little bit farther though. But then again, like, I'd hate those slippery slope arguments. Like, that's something that we should obviously catch. Anyone who has child pornography on their computer.
But what then, if they're smoking crack? What if there's a video of them smoking crack or selling crack?
Yeah. See that? Yeah, that's the tough part.
The one thing on the security thing is it's interesting because all the things in the short term that do grant us security also open up huge vulnerabilities in the sense of if the system is compromised. You see what I'm saying? So
yeah,
like,
exactly. Yeah, if somebody gets access to all these cameras all at once, then
right.
That's a huge breach to deal with.
Just think about it. So these rings and everything keep us safe because we see what's going on. But if someone compromises it, our security goes way down because they actually know if we're there and they can see like what valuables we have inside. I mean, like it's a weird thing because it can go from being a security feature to a huge security liability with a very simple attack on a central system.
Last thing on this note is the general consensus seems to be chipping kids might be okay, but seeing what your kids see is a step too far.
Okay.
Which I think is the point of that episode. That's a little bit creepy.
Okay.
But chipping kids seems to be okay. You'd immediately, pretty much deal with the children getting kidnapped or, their whereabouts on a Saturday night at 2 a.m. I guess. It's all weird stuff. It's all stuff to be figured out, I guess.
Well, and to your point about geofencing, insurance companies offer something similar like we built for SureTrack, which is an OBD2 plugin So it's this little thing that's probably about the size of the size of your phone, and you plug it in underneath your steering wheel, and it feeds information about your car. Well, insurance companies have a feature now. I think it's progressive. So if you put the dom on your child's driving, you can disable the car. You know where the car is at all times. You know how fast the car is going, so you can monitor your kid's driving and shut it down at any minute. Like if they say they're going to their friend's house and you notice they're far away, you can just kind of disable the vehicle.
I just want to be able to take control of the car. That's the next step.
Yeah, exactly.
Just drive them straight back to the house and be waiting at the end of the driveway.
Yeah, so that augmented reality, that geofencing, that really does kind of the future is now there, and it's only going to get bigger and more prevalent in the near future.
Yep. AI is the huge one. One thing we haven't talked about yet that we actually did an episode on is the blockchain. And I'm a little more lukewarm on the blockchain than you are, but I think there are definitely some use cases for the blockchain that aren't going to go away. I mean, there is something to having a public ledger for a lot of stuff. And we talked about on that episode, titles for homes seems to be the perfect application for the blockchain, even though it eliminates an unbelievable number of jobs. It makes way more sense just to be able to handle that through the blockchain. But is that something you see taking off in a big way in 5 to 10 years? Or is that something that you think might fizzle out and become more of a niche thing than it is now?
Well, it's interesting because the thing that is beneficial to the blockchain about me, I'm not one of these security nuts or privacy nuts where I think it's such a big deal to run transactions through a single system. That I don't really care about. I mean, call me naive, but I just don't really, that doesn't get me going that much. But what you said, like the ability to have transactions verified in minutes rather than days, or as the technology progresses, milliseconds rather than days, that's what's going to take off. And like you said, there's other ways other than the blockchain to accomplish that. Blockchain is just the way we have it right now that allows you to verify transactions very quickly. But it's the human element that slows that down. It's not the fact that a transaction is going through a number of democratized computers. It's just the fact that there's human oversight right now in verifying transactions. At some point in time, that human oversight is going to be removed because it's more prone to errors anyway. And then whether it's removed via the blockchain or something else, that's what I see taking off is the instant gratification of transactions being verified.
Yeah, I think there's a common theme of human oversight being removed, and I think it's going to make people's heads spin how quickly that happens over the next 5 to 10 years. And then if we're talking 50 years down the line, I think it's going to be really weird at that point how little humans actually do in a half century.
I just hope 50 years, I may still be alive. I just hope we have teleportation in 50 years. Like that is the one thing that I've just like been chomping at the bit for since I can remember. It's like, why can I not teleport? Why am I stuck in this car? Why can I not just be there already?
Travel time is such a drag.
Yeah,
it would be fun to be able to teleport to events and stuff too.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and then think about that. Think about how everything changes if teleportation is real and affordable. I mean,
I'll play devil's advocate, but go ahead.
How many roads are there in this country? I mean, how big is the airline industry in this country? Like, doesn't that all just collapse if teleportation becomes ubiquitous?
Actually, that's a really interesting side point. Before we get back to that, is how big the airline industry is. I don't know if you remember, we actually had a bet in I think it was Atlanta about how many people fly in a given day. And I think you said 300,000. I think I said 3 million. And I think it ended up being 7 million people fly in the U.S. alone. And it's something like 20 million people worldwide in any given day fly in a plane.
It's insane. That blew my mind.
It's absolutely mind-boggling how many people fly. Which the whole point was, it's absolutely mind-boggling how safe flying is.
Right.
Nothing happens, and 20 million people do it every single day. It's insane. But to play devil's advocate to your teleportation point, I think the other solution to the travel problem is if people don't travel anywhere anymore. And so I think as sort of like the home space becomes more and more completely self-contained, where you can have anything delivered to your home that you need, you have like as much entertainment as you could possibly want in 100 lifetimes delivered straight to your home. I'm not sure anyone is going to leave their house in the future.
Well, and what are the names of those people in Japan that do that now?
Oh, I'll look that up. But yeah, there's actually a major problem in Japan with especially young males. But it's not just males. I mean, and it's not just young people, but with people who never leave their apartments. They just live in their apartment. They have food
or
their apartment.
Their parents' house.
Yeah, exactly.
Just a room in their parents' house. They don't even leave the room in their parents'.
Yeah, they won't leave their room. And actually, it's becoming a problem that is being seen worldwide too. It's becoming a problem in the States, not nearly as much as in Japan. Japan, for some reason or another, seems to be the hotbed for this issue. But there are literally, I think it's tens of thousands of people who just won't leave their apartment and just stay there. And you know, there are services like they have explicit services now where they go and check on these people because, you know, who knows if they have health problems, you know, they need medical attention. Who knows if they're taking care of themselves, like if they actually need food. So they have people go around to these known, and I'll look up the name of it, but these people who don't leave their homes just to go and make sure that they're still doing all right. It's insane.
It seems, I've never been to Japan, and I only know what I read and see in John Wick movies. But it seems like there's less of a stigma in Japan and Asian culture in general against adopting new things. Like there's less. It's weird because I know they are beholden to some traditions, but you know what I'm saying? Like it seems like in Japan it's a lot less weird to interact with an android. Where kind of like in the U.S. we hold, no, you got to have your close circle of friends. You got to have that human interaction. And in Japan, they're like, no, I like talking to a robot better. And there's no like kind of like shaming for trying something. I know there's shaming, but there's not like shaming for adopting new things or like kind of putting off old traditions in the face of something that is new kind of thing. I don't know. Maybe I'm totally wrong, but it just seems like that might be why that things take off quicker in countries like Japan than here in the States.
I think that's actually true, and I'm looking up now what the name of Hikari is. The name of a virtual girlfriend that right. A lot of Japanese men have, who will, you know, it's a bot, so but it lives inside of something called a gate box. The new Blade Runner movie, Blade Runner 2049 or whatever it was, right. Where he has a virtual girlfriend. It's basically that, just a little lower tech. Yep. So she'll text you during the day being like, I miss you, when are you coming home? She'll greet you when you come in and say how excited she is to see you. It's nuts. You know, but good on them for trying, I guess. But the prevalence, they're called hikikomori. Hikikomori.
Say that again. You cut out again. Say that again.
Hikikomori. Hikikomori. No, Hikikomori. In 2010, is the 2010 numbers. 700,000 individuals and 1.5 million people on the verge of becoming hikikomori.
That's 8 years ago. 8 years ago.
So figure a couple million people in Japan.
Never leave their apartment.
Or basically never leave their apartment.
And it's in large part due to technology, because they get anything they want delivered, or entertainment. They have every form of entertainment they could ever want, and they get anything they need delivered right to their door.
Which I wonder how much that's going to occur on a larger scale going forward, as it becomes even more and more easier.
So in 50 years, we could just be completely silent. We could be completely silent. We'd have our.
That's actually what I think is going to happen. I think actually most people are just never going to leave their domicile or their immediate vicinity.
And I mean, in Japan, it's funny that we look at them as the model for 15 years. Their birth rates have dropped, right? They don't
know. They're way below replacement rate at this point, Japan.
Right. So I mean, it's interesting. It's another way where, like, we talk about this kind of tongue in cheek all the time, well, somewhat tongue in cheek, that Hollywood sees the end of humanity at the hands of technology as these android robots taking over, but we always joke that technology is smarter than that. It's like, the internet is going to get us hating each other and we're going to wipe each other out. Or technology is going to make it so convenient that we're not going to even worry about breeding. Or we're just going to kind of breed ourselves out of to extinction kind of thing.
That's right. Yeah, it'll just placate us into extinction.
That's right.
So that's 50 years from now, according to Gunner Technology. We'll be placated into extinction. You can quote us on that.
Bold predictions. We need to get Bravado to lay odds on that.
It could happen. I could honestly see that happening, or something along those lines. It's not outside the realm of possibility, especially with this. Another thing. I mean, this goes back to VR, but I always thought teleportation would be cool to be able to travel to, cool sites in the world, like Europe, cool places in Europe. To where?
Machu Picchu.
Machu Picchu. I've always thought it'd be cool to travel to Machu Picchu.
The reason that always sticks out in my head, this is kind of an aside. It wasn't a friend, he was an acquaintance. I don't think he had any friends, and it wasn't here, man. But he was really smart. And in high school, like, people would ask him, like, hey, I don't want to say his name, but hey, how do you do this problem? Especially in math. And he'd be like, spell Machu Picchu. And if you couldn't spell Machu Picchu, he wouldn't answer your question. It was just amazing.
The most weirdest guy in the world.
He's now living by himself in a room in Japan.
He's in a Kikomori. But once VR technology advances to a sufficient enough stage, I mean, you can go to Machu Picchu via headset.
That's right. And
some sort of haptic feedback suit, like in Ready Player One. I mean,
that's exactly what I was going to say. Actually,
good enough.
Feel the breeze on your face, the climate, everything.
All set. You're done. You don't need to leave your room. I mean, and it solves the overcrowding problem. So people just contain people to a room with everything they need within that room, and you can squeeze millions and millions of people in a much smaller space.
And like you said, think about all the violence goes down, transportation goes down, pollution goes down. I mean, it solves a lot of problems if people just don't leave their room.
I think that's the big takeaway from this episode, is never leave your room. Yeah, be a trendsetter. Don't leave your room.
Save the planet.
Get ahead of the game. Is there anything else you want to touch on 5, 10, 50 years from now as far as the technology industry goes? We've hit on some most of the big subjects, I think. VR, AI, surveillance stuff.
I think it's easier to predict the lifestyle that technology is going to create as opposed to how the technology is going to create that lifestyle. You know what I mean? Like, you can, in 50 years, we're basically imagining an autonomous life for people, like an autonomous siloed life. And I think that's actually a pretty safe prediction. How we actually get there and how technology arrives at that, accomplishes that goal is a lot harder to predict.
Do you think there'll be any pushback as far as the autonomous lifestyle goes? Do you think there'll be rebels who want interaction? Like, I think it would be a pretty avant-garde move to say, you know, I'm not going to play this technology game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there will be like tree people, you know, who kind of drag.
The Hikikomori will fight the tree people.
I mean, like, just trying to drag these people out of their homes just to like make them play a game of bocce ball or something like that with them.
Right.
But I think they definitely will. I mean, I caught the end of Tucker Carlson the other day, and he was up in arms about the decline of maleness, and I don't even know a better way to put it, like the loss of machismo in society and how testosterone rates have dropped precipitously over the last 30 years. And it's kind of from like having things like done for you and things like that. I mean, it was obviously ridiculous, and he just came out sounding like he was whining about this, and it was kind of like, all right, dude, like.
Because when I think machismo, I think Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, exactly. But so he was whipping up a bunch of backlash over, like, you know, men need to get out there and do stuff. I mean, so I'm sure there'll be backlash from the tree people.
Well, yeah, and the tree people have plenty of time to be as macho as they want.
Right.
Chop down whatever trees are left.
I mean, there'll be empty roads where they can literally wrestle bears on the middle of I-95 if they want to.
So 50 years from now, Gunner Technology predicts half the population will be living alone in their apartments, and half the population will be wrestling bears in the middle of the street. I think we nailed it.
Can we put this one in a time capsule so it's open in 50 years?
Yeah, when God damn, when we're 86 and 85 respectively, we'll pull this episode up on our like transcoder that's built into our arm, and clearly we will not be in the same location. We'll both be in our own apartments.
That's right. I will not be wrestling a bear. I definitely won't be one of the bears.
Maybe a virtual bear.
Yeah.
And we'll have our virtual elderly wives next to us, and we can relive this episode 50 years from now. So mark it down on your calendars. Anyone who's watching too, join us in 50 years to review, and we'll predict the 50 years after that.
That's right. That's right.
Anniversary. But that'll do it for this episode of the Gunner Technology Livestream. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Make sure to check out our Facebook page and our sponsors Facebook page, Country Shore Outfitters. And you can also visit them at countryshoreoutfitters.com. Register for the Country Shore giveaway on our Facebook page. Check out our blog post at gunnertech.com, our ebooks on Amazon, iBooks, Barnes & Noble, and wherever ebooks are sold. And make sure to tune in next Thursday at 1 o'clock for the next episode of the Gunner Technology Livestream. It's actually going to be a brand new 10-part series, subject TBD. So catch the first episode and watch all 10. I'm Derry Merkins. That's Cody Swan. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.